Ram, 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 Hari, 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 Krishna, Krishna, Hari, 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 Ram, Ram, Hari, Hari, Krishna, Ram, Ram, Hari, 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 Krishna, Krishna, Hari, Ram, Ram, Hari, 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 Krishna, Hari, Krishna, Krishna, Ram, Ram, Hari, Ram, Ram, Hari, Hari, Ram, 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 Hari, 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 Ram, Ram, Hari, Hari, Ram, 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 Hari, 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 Krishna, Krishna, Ram, Ram, Hari, Ram, 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 Hari, Hari, Ram, 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 Hari, Hari, Hari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Balava Giribaradhare. Gopijana Balava Giribaradhare. Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana. Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana. Yamunatira Vanachare. Yamunatira Vanachare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahangsa Parivrajak Jaya Status Srimad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. ISKCON's founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Ki. Shri Giri Govardhan Ki. Sankirtan Yagya Ki. Go Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nama Om Vishnupada Krishna Presta Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachade Jatarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Pramanityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Devotees, welcome. Welcome to this evening's class on Srimad Bhagavatam Overview Seminar. Welcome to all our devotees here from Radharanath Temple. Welcome to devotees in Zoom land, YouTube land, Facebook land, and wherever else, other places than in the temple here, Radharanath Temple. We're very pleased to have you all here. We are in the third chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Third chapter is titled, Krishna is the source of all incarnations. There's a list of 22 incarnations, and we have discussed already 18, and now we're moving on to the 19th and 20th, and who happen to be Lord Balaram and Lord Krishna. And ultimately, of course, there's special importance there in the sense that Lord Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead and the source of all incarnations. Although here, it's just an interesting point that here Krishna is being listed out as one of the incarnations of himself. Anyway, that's not really, we shouldn't worry about that. He appears at the time that in the regular course of appearance of incarnations, in this particular case, Yuga avatars. So Krishna appears at the time of the Dwapara Yuga avatar, because there's always a Dwapara Yuga avatar, every Dwapara Yuga, who is a blackish form of the Lord, and who, according to Kavi Kanapur, is usually named or addressed as Shama. So Krishna appears, Krishna, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, appears in this universe, and it happens to be on this planet, once in a day of Brahma, at the end of one of the Dwapara Yugas, and he sort of, in that sense, takes the place of the Yuga avatar. Although he is more than the Yuga avatar, and he does more than the Yuga avatar, but he also does what the Yuga avatar does. So, anyway, let's read. We're up to verse 23. In the 19th and 20th incarnations, the Lord advented himself as Lord Balaram and Lord Krishna in the family of Vrishni, the Yadu dynasty. Can you please adjust the sound here? We are hearing devotees from other parts of the universe. Yes. That's what's happening, because they haven't turned off the people's microphones in Zoom or whatever. All right, so, yes. So the Lord appeared as Lord Balaram and Lord Krishna in the family of Vishnu, the Yadu dynasty, and by so doing, he removed the burden of the world, among other things. And in the actual verse, as is not done generally, but is sometimes done, but not much, is that Lord Krishna is addressed as Bhagavan. I'll just read the Sanskrit. Ekona vimshe vimshatime Vrishnishu prapya janmani Rama Krishna viti bhuvo Bhagavan aharad baram. So Rama Krishna viti bhuvo Bhagavan aharad baram. So yes, this term Bhagavan, it has been used before. We mentioned a couple of days ago, even at the end of the previous chapter 2, where there was that verse, Vasudeva this, Vasudeva that, and Vasudeva a number of things, Paro, Dharmo, and different things, very important things, that Vasudeva means Lord Krishna himself is the supreme in all these different ways. So the term Bhagavan was used there. And the basic idea from the end of that chapter and now through this chapter here, chapter 3, is that we are talking about the incarnations of Bhagavan. In one sense, of course, any one of them can be addressed as Bhagavan, and it would not be inappropriate at all. But here, in this listing, the whole listing, the term Bhagavan is being used more, or it's just, more, shall we say, or even it's just being used to refer to the original form, Lord Krishna. Or in this case, as Prabhupada mentions in the purport, Balaram and Krishna, because Balaram is the first expansion. So he's also, you could say, an original form. At least that's what Prabhupada says here. The specific mention of the word Bhagavan in this text indicates that Balaram and Krishna are original forms of the Lord. Not, you could say, more distant forms, which are still forms of the Lord. You can't say they're not, but they are definitely more distant from the source. Like we mentioned, Prithu Maharaj is Shaktyavesh. He's a jiva like us, actually. He's a jiva like us, but he has been empowered with the potency of the Lord in certain respects. Or Narada Muni, it's the same. Vyasadeva was mentioned as one of these avatars, and he, not always actually, but generally, is also a jiva like us who's got special empowerment. But in and of himself, he's a jiva soul like us. So, but Balaram, and particularly Krishna, definitely most particularly Krishna, is actually the Bhagavan, the one who possesses all opulences. And others who may be addressed as Bhagavan and are addressed as Bhagavan in so many cases, They are Bhagavan because they are expansions from that Bhagavan, Krishna, that the original possessor of all opulences. So, Prabhupada says here that Balaram and Krishna are original forms. This will be further explained later. Well, in so many places during the course of Srimad Bhagavatam, but later in 5 verses, when we come to verse 28. Lord Krishna is not an incarnation of the Purusha. This has also been presented, that so many of the avatars, incarnations, they have a type of dependent relationship, something like that, with Garbhodakshai Vishnu, because they enter into the universe through him, and eventually they exit through him and go back, usually to their Vaikuntha planet. So, therefore they have that type of relationship with the Purusha. Garbhodakshai Vishnu is one of the 3 Purusha avatars. They have such a relationship. And we mentioned that when Krishna appears, he generally also comes via Garbhodakshai Vishnu, but not because, sort of, you could say, he has to, as with the other avatars, but just to honor the system. Yeah, just to honor the system, not because that's the only way he can enter. In the case of other of the avatars, that's basically how it works. They have to come through Garbhodakshai Vishnu. So yes, Lord Krishna is not an incarnation of the Purusha, as we learned from the beginning of this chapter. He is directly the original personality of Godhead, and Balaram is the first plenary manifestation of the Lord, and from Baladev so many others come. Yes, okay, so that was 23. 24. So now we've listed out 20. There's just a couple more in this list. There are many more in general, but in this list there's just 2 more. Then in the beginning of Kali Yuga, the Lord will appear as Lord Buddha, the son of Anjana, in the province of Gaya, just for the purpose of deluding those who are envious of the faithful theist. Yes, so Gaya in Bihar is where Lord Buddha appeared. And I've never been there, but it's celebrated as his place. And he appeared with his mission, as the verse says, to delude those who are envious of the faithful theist. Means those people who were abusing theism because they were using the Vedas to justify meat eating. And that's a real abuse. And they were abusing those who, like the Vaishnavas, who were trying to stand up against them and say that, no, you can't just use the Vedas like that. So it was a big thing at the time. It was quite normal that people who would be, say they were, or be widely accepted as followers of the Vedas, they were just practically carnivorous, what to speak of, eating some meat. And the temples were like slaughterhouses. So Buddha appeared to delude people like that with the philosophy of ahimsa, non-violence, ahimso paramo dharmo. There are different ways of putting it, but basically it means that ahimsa, non-violence, is the supreme dharma. Paramo dharmo, the supreme dharma. So Buddha deluded them in that way, to think that ahimsa is just sort of like the conclusion, the perfection, the ultimate form of dharma, which it's not. Of course, it's very nice in many ways, but it's not that. And so these envious people, these bewildered people, vicious people, they became bewildered by that misleading but nice-sounding philosophy, and at least they stopped killing the animals. Yeah. So in this way, Lord Buddha, he had a part to play, important part to play in reforming Vedic culture, or beginning the Reformation, beginning a reformation of culture, which led eventually to actually following, like the movement of Lord Chaitanya, to actually follow the Vedic tradition properly. Sankirtan Yajna. Right, so in the purport, it's an interesting purport, it's a pretty long purport actually, Prabhupada gives, and he makes a number of interesting points which we won't go through all of them, but one point I can mention. So Buddha, Prabhupada basically says, Buddha first of all wanted to check the habit of animal killing, because if that wasn't checked, they wouldn't be able to come back to the broader Vedic tradition. The animal killers are dangerous elements on the path going back to Godhead. There are two types of animal killers. The soul is also sometimes called the animal, in inverted commas, or the living being. Therefore, both the slaughterer of animals, actual slaughter of animals, and those who have lost their identity as spirit souls are animal killers. Yeah, so these people were killers of the soul, just totally destroying any possibility of making any spiritual advancement, and rather in just a full-on process of degradation of the soul. Yes, and Maharaj Parikshit said that only the animal killer cannot relish the transcendental message of the Supreme Lord. And therefore these people, people in general, therefore if people are to be educated to the path of Godhead, they must be taught first and foremost to, in inverted commas, in italics, to stop the process of animal killing, as above mentioned. And then again in italics, it is nonsensical to say that animal killing has nothing to do with spiritual realization. It definitely has a lot to do. Yeah. By this dangerous theory, many so-called sannyasis have sprung up by the grace of Kali Yuga, who preach animal killing under the garb of the Vedas. It's terrible, isn't it? And Prabhupada mentions this has been discussed in the conversation between Lord Chaitanya and the Chandkazi. So we won't go into it further, but those are some points in that regard. Right, so verse 25, and here's the last one. Thereafter, at the conjunction of two yugas, the Lord of the creation will take his birth as the Kalki incarnation and become the son of Vishnu Yasha. At this time, almost all the rulers of the earth will have degenerated into plunderers. Well, they're already working on it. I mean, they're working on it. They really are. But it's going to become worse. It's going to become a lot worse. Oh, terrible. Interesting point is that Srila Jiva Goswami, or Rupa Goswami, or both of them, they make the point that Kalki is also a Shaktivesh avatar. Anyway, it's not such a big thing. That like Shaktivesh avatar means not important, because not Vishnu Tattva as such, Jiva Tattva like us, but given some special potency. Shaktivesh avatar is avatar and must be taken very seriously as a form of the Lord. So, Kalki, yes, Kalki, will come right at the end of Kali Yuga. There's 427,000 years to go. Some wishful thinkers, sort of, not exactly from the Vedic tradition, but with some connection to it, albeit not a very good connection, they say, Kalki has already come. Shambhala is the village. But, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, even though it's bad, it's really bad actually, but it's not that bad compared to what it's going to be like. So as Prabhupada describes elsewhere, when Lord Kalki comes, almost everyone, there'll still be Vaishnavas, but they'll be like completely underground because of the abuses being handed out by, the governments and just the demoniac people. So Vaishnavism will really be underground, but it'll still be there. So Kalki comes as the son of a learned Brahmin, Vishnu Yasha, from the village of Shambhala. So, but at that time things will be so bad, and the vast majority of people will become so bad that Prabhupada says that all Kalki will do is just kill them. And that's all. They'll be too far gone. Sort of unreformable. People are reformable. At least many people have already become reformed or are in the process, like all of us sitting here. But there are many people who can be reformed. Of course, the devotees have to really develop their abilities at reforming. We have to really develop the preaching and our preaching so that we become more and more able to influence these people who are, they're not doing well at the moment, so many of them. But they're not impossible cases. But at the end of Kali Yuga, when Kalki comes, it'll be too late. Okay, so verse 26. O Brahmins, the incarnations of the Lord are innumerable, like rivulets flowing from inexhaustible sources of water. Yeah. So Prabhupada explains in the purport here to this, 26, that this list is not complete. It's not intended to be complete, but these are prominent avatars. And there are many others, and Prabhupada lists out some others. Sri Hayagriva Hari Hangsa. Hangsa will be described in the 9th canto. Prishnigarabha Vibhu. Prishnigarabha will be mentioned, I think, in the 10th canto, or maybe the 9th. Vibhu Satyasena Vaikunta Sarva Bhoma Vishvaksena Dharma Setu Sudhama Yogeshvara Brihad Banu, and others of the bygone ages. And Prahlad Maharaj says in his prayer, my Lord, you manifest as many incarnations as there are species of life. Well, even a lot more, ultimately. Namely, the aquatics. Well, we already met Lord Matsya last night. The aquatics, the vegetables. Haribol. Yes. I mean, we don't want to, just take it lightly. I mean, it's understandable how one might, but actually the Lord appears amongst the vegetables. The reptiles. Is a tortoise a reptile? I don't know. Oh, well, like Shesha is a snake. Snakes are reptiles. Yeah. So, okay. The birds, well, Garuda is a form of the Lord. The beasts, there's Nrsingadev. The men, Lord Ram, the demigods. Yes. So the Lord appears like that, and the incarnation in Kali Yuga is Lord Chaitanya, who's not mentioned in this list. So here's another one. Yeah. So many incarnations are there. And actually Prabhupada talks about at the end. Some incarnations mentioned above are almost plenary portions. For instance, the Kumars are empowered with transcendental knowledge. They're considered avatars, they're jivas. Sri Narada is empowered with devotional service, the Bhakti Shakti. Maharaj Prithu is an empowered incarnation with executive function. But the Matsya incarnation is directly a plenary portion. He's Vishnu Tattva, whereas Prithu, Narada, the Kamars, they're Jiva Tattva. So the innumerable incarnations of the Lord are manifested all over the universes constantly without cessation, as water flows constantly from waterfalls. Okay. And 27, which is actually the last verse in this particular section, 27, says that all the rishis, manus, demigods, and descendants of Manu, who are especially powerful, are plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord. This also includes the Prajapatis. It means that, the implication is that there are different people who are kind of in different borderline type positions. Manus are considered avatars, but they are generally Shakyavesh. But they're considered avatars. Brahma and Shiva are guna avatars, although Brahma is generally, almost always, but at least generally, a jiva. And even Srila Prabhupada makes the point that we have all been Lord Brahmas. So in that sense, we've all been avatars. Haribol. We've all been guna avatars. But, it didn't work out, it seems. We didn't do well enough. We had to come back. And Lord Shiva has a special position, just a special position of his own. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur does mention that sometimes you get Shakyavesh forms of Lord Shiva, but that's really not common at all. Almost to the point that it doesn't happen, but it happens. Otherwise, Lord Shiva is not Vishnu Tattva, but he's Vishnu, a form of Vishnu who has become permanently influenced by the material nature through his association with Durga, with his wife. So his position is like irretrievable. He cannot go back to being Vishnu Tattva. He's permanently in that position. And the understanding would be that he never really was Vishnu Tattva. He's always been Shiva Tattva. But to understand the phenomenon, what is Shiva Tattva, then this sort of the parallel or the connection in that sense with Vishnu is expressed in that way, as if Lord Vishnu actually became contaminated. Yeah. Yes, so this is interesting, because this is verse 27, the last verse in this section, and we're going on to verse 28, which is our very important verse, which is a section in and of itself, on its own. So it's interesting, 27, 28, obviously they have a relationship, and the verse says that Maha Ojasa Kala Sarve, that all these rishis, manus, demigods, descendants of Manu, all these big people, different types of very big people, who are especially powerful, are plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord. And this also includes the Prajapatis. But some of them are so partial, they're not referred to as forms of the Lord. They're just referred to as themselves. But in the sense being expressed here, there's the sort of the possibility, it wouldn't be wrong to see them as a certain particular forms of the Lord, including the Prajapatis. So this term kala means a portion of a portion of the plenary portion, which leads us into verse 28, which is very important. I'll read the Sanskrit. Ete changsa kalapumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Mridiyanti Yuge Yuge. So again, this term kala is used, as we just mentioned in verse 27, a portion of a portion, or a portion of a plenary portion. So it translates as, all of the above-mentioned incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord. And some of them, anyway, let me just continue reading this. All of the above-mentioned incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord. But Lord Sri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. All of them appear on planets. Whenever there's a disturbance created by the atheists, the Lord incarnates to protect the theists. So all of the above-mentioned incarnations, mainly it's the list of 22. But we can't exactly, seeing 27 it was expressed the way it was, we can't exactly just leave out the rishis and the manus and the demigods and descendants of Manu, who have been specifically described as plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions. So it's particularly the important ones who've been listed out, but then there's more and there's other types, and they're sort of borderline cases and partial borderline cases, and it's not a simple subject, really. So, yeah. So they're either plenary portions, literally a plenary portion means a full portion, or portions of the plenary portions. How about portions of the plenary portions? Yes. It's, as you start going down the scale into the more borderline areas, you get all these special people, Maha Ojasa. By our standards, they're very powerful. They're way beyond us. And their power is something from the Lord. But still, in the sense of the power the Lord has, it's not a lot of that power. So, yeah, they all have their expansions of the Lord in different ways. But, and this is the point, Lord Sri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. And this is discussed, it's discussed actually in Chaitanya Charitamrita, how Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. And Srila Jiva Goswami, in Krishna Sandarbha, he goes into a whole big thing based on this verse. This verse, he says, is the Paribhas Sutra, the ultimate definitive verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, and therefore of all the Vedic literatures, establishing what Srimad Bhagavatam's about. It's about Krishna and how he's the Supreme Lord, and what all the Vedic literatures are about. They're all about Krishna and how he's the Supreme Lord. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, what does he say? By all the Vedas I'm to be known. Yes. It may appear that by so many Vedic literatures, so many other things are to be known, but it's not really like that. To whatever extent it may appear to be, it's just an appearance of there being some other subject matter. But here, literally, the actual wording used is ete. Ete means all of these, all of them. Cha angsa. Angsa means plenary portions, and kala, from the previous verse 27, kala means a portion of a plenary portion. Pumsa, of the powerful one. Pumsa means the powerful one of the Supreme Lord. So all of these, they're either angsas or kalas. They're either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Supreme. But Krishna's tu means but. Krishna is Bhagavan Swayam. You know, this term we mentioned already, Bhagavan. It can be used with any, and it is used. As we read through the Bhagavatam, we'll see how the term Bhagavan is used for this avatar and that incarnation and that form of the Lord. It's used fairly freely, you could say. But strictly speaking, the actual possessor, the proprietor of all the opulences, is Krishna. And the other forms of the Lord, they have their opulences because they're parts of Krishna, not because of just they have opulences. It's because they're parts of Krishna. Therefore, they have his opulences, or some of them. So in other words, this term Bhagavan can be used in the most accurate, complete, and appropriate sense with Krishna himself. But to make it more clear, to make it not just more clear, but just vividly clear, here the verse says, Krishna's tu, Bhagavan Swayam. Swayam, the term Swayam, in the word for word, if you look in the Bhagavatam, you'll see Swayam is translated as in person, which is, that's a good translation of the term. In person, directly, the very one, the actual one. Yeah. Just like, in other words, it's a term of emphasis, just like in Brahma Samhita, as we sing. Just like in Brahma Samhita, and as we sing in deity greeting, Govindam Adipurusham Tam Aham Bhajami. According to Sanskrit grammar, Govindam Adipurusham, Krishna, Govinda, the original person. Tam means him, it's him. Aham means I, and Bhajami means I worship. So literally speaking, what is being said is that Govinda, the original person, it's him who I I worship, who I worship, because the verb is complete as bhajami. It means I worship. And so the tam aham, the presence of aham, is for emphasis. It's him that I, me, worship. So there's no room for doubt at all, but so it's just literally doubly clear that me, I worship him. And sometimes when we speak and we want to emphasize something about ourselves or someone, then we sort of refer to ourselves twice. Anyway, I don't know if that makes so much sense, but this is what's going on here, that Krishna's to Bhagavan, Swayam, but Krishna is the Bhagavan in person, the very one, the actual one. Yeah. So it's a term of like very clear specification. So Krishna is directly the very actual Bhagavan, the actual possessor of all opulences. And others, they can be addressed as Bhagavan, sort of just by extension, because they're extensions of Krishna, expansions, extensions, and therefore, okay, they can be referred to as Bhagavan. Yes, so, devotees, it's an interesting subject. It's really an extremely interesting subject. And we're now going into the next section, which is from verse 29 to verse 39. And sure, what's it about? Tune in tomorrow and find out. Oh, it's interesting. Different forms of the Lord, with different statuses, different positions, different, you could say, natures. That's what we're going to discuss tomorrow. So, Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Any comments or questions, including from internet land? Marie? No? Okay. But just hang on. Any from internet land? Sounds like not. We got to, because we got lots of people out there. Okay, I take it there's not. So, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So our program has changed. life.
Yeah, the doctors got into it with me a little yesterday and today. Yeah, we have to, hospitals are full, COVID, and yeah, it's just gonna. So I met with the devotees before lunch, impressed upon them some adjustments, and hopefully they'll take it. I mean, did I mention? I meant to mention. It was in my notes that if necessary, if we, this is not being broadcasted, but to just check around you, Maharaj, you never know.
Are we broadcasting?
For 100% sure we just can